No one expected the emotional earthquake that would suddenly hit Bishop Creflo Dollar's life. He was a man known around the world for his powerful sermons and deep, unshakable faith. Someone whose days were spent encouraging others to believe in miracles and endure life's storms. But that morning, everything shifted. It wasn't the usual kind of church crisis or a public scandal. This hit much closer to home. The news, so sudden and devastating, pierced through his carefully maintained strength. The kind of heartbreak he was facing couldn't be fixed by scriptures or church service. His life, which looked so full and blessed from the outside, was suddenly standing on shaky ground. Inwardly, grief crept in, quiet but suffocating. Up until that moment, everything in Bishop Dollar's world looked stable. His schedule was overflowing, with conferences, speaking engagements, and packed churches eager to hear his voice. Just days before the bad news, he had celebrated the release of a new book. Donations were flowing in. His ministry was reaching more people than ever. But under all that success and celebration, there were signs that something was off. His inner circle had started noticing his growing fatigue. He seemed distracted, his eyes holding a tiredness he didn't speak about. Some meetings were quietly canceled. Private family gatherings began to take priority. The changes were subtle but real, and in hindsight, they were the early warnings of a storm that was about to break his heart wide open. The moment that changed everything came with terrifying clarity. Bishop Dollar learned that his eldest daughter had been diagnosed with a rare and life-threatening illness. The kind of news that steals your breath and makes time stop. Doctors described it in serious terms, and all he could do at first was sit in stunned silence. The strong, composed figure known for his unwavering leadership was reduced to tears. For the first time in years, he was not the preacher offering comfort. He was a father facing his worst fear. The home that had always been filled with laughter now felt cold and uncertain. This wasn't just about leadership anymore. This was about love, loss, and a man watching his child suffer with no guaranteed outcome. He wasn't trying to protect a brand, was trying to hold his family together. As the news began to ripple out, those closest to the Dollar family felt the weight of it first. Then it moved through the broader church community, touching the hearts of countless people who had long seen Bishop Dollar as their spiritual anchor. He canceled upcoming sermons, postponed events, and stepped away from public life to be by his daughter's side. But he didn't hide. In a raw and emotional video, he addressed his supporters, explaining what was happening with honesty and vulnerability. His voice, usually so commanding, now trembled with emotion. He asked for prayers, not just for strength, but for healing and peace. What followed was an overwhelming wave of love and compassion. Messages came in by the thousands. Prayer chains started in churches around the globe. Other pastors reached out, offering their support. The Christian community showed up in full force, wrapping their arms around the Dollar family in their time of greatest need. His wife stood firm beside him, a quiet but powerful presence through every hospital visit, every moment of uncertainty. Together, they leaned into each other and into their faith, knowing that this journey would not be walked alone. But still, the days were hard. The fear never really left. Each test result, each new update from doctors, came with a mixture of dread and desperate hope. Looking back over Bishop Dollar's life makes the current pain even more profound. He's a man who has faced trials before, financial struggles, controversies, public criticism. Each time he survived, growing stronger through the adversity. But nothing had prepared him for this. Those past storms, tough as they were, didn't compare to the emotional weight of watching his daughter fight for her life. All the sermons in the world couldn't numb the pain he felt now. This was a personal crucible, one that challenged everything he believed in. Still, he found a way to hold on, to keep believing, even if just by a thread. Behind the scenes, where the cameras didn't go and the congregation couldn't see, he wrestled with big questions. Why now? Why her? How much more could he take? His prayers, once loud and confident, became softer, more desperate. He cried in the silence, not as a preacher, but as a father. The smile he wore for others faded when he was alone. There were nights when the weight of fear felt unbearable. But still he prayed. Still he hoped. And through that raw struggle, something beautiful happened. People saw the humanity in him. The man who had spent years lifting others up now found himself being held by the very community he had helped build. That support came from everywhere, churches across continents, strangers who had only seen him online, longtime followers who felt like family. The messages weren't just kind, they were soul-stirring. People opened up about their own trials, their own sick children, their own prayers that felt unanswered. Bishop Dollar wasn't just leading anymore. He was one of them, a father in pain, a believer trying not to lose faith. Even major church leaders stood with him. Friends like Bishop T.D. Jakes and Joel Osteen reached out, offering more than words. They offered presence. And sometimes that was more healing than anything else. There was one night, away from all the noise, when Bishop Dollar stood alone in the sanctuary. The pulpit that had always felt like home now felt distant. The silence was deep. He looked out over the empty chairs and thought about the thousands who had sat there, hanging on his every word. He whispered a prayer, not for crowds, not for success, but for strength. To endure, to lead again someday, not from perfection, but from pain. That moment, though small and private, was transformative. In his heartbreak, he was reconnecting with a deeper purpose. Weeks passed, and slowly there was movement in the right direction. Small signs of healing, glimpses of progress. Doctors began to offer cautious optimism. The weight in his chest began to lift, if only slightly. He held on to every bit of good news like it was treasure. And with each day that brought a little more hope, Bishop Dollar began to regain his footing. He wasn't the same man, but maybe that was the point. The suffering had changed him, softened him, strengthened him in a different way. Eventually, he shared with his followers that he would return to preaching. But this time, something was different. He wasn't just coming back to teach, he was coming back to testify. His pain, he said, would become his sermon. He would preach through the brokenness, through the tears. Because that's where real ministry happens, not just in the good times, but in the valleys. His resilience, his ability to rise again, wasn't just for him. It was for anyone who had ever faced something too heavy to carry alone. His story became a living reminder that faith doesn't shield us from hardship, helps us survive it. And through all of it, Bishop Creflo Dollar became more than a leader. He became a symbol of how even the strongest among us need grace, how hope can rise from the hardest places, and how even in the darkest hour, there's always a flicker of light waiting to lead us home.